Welcome to the AXPONA Audio Insider Podcast. My name is Lenny Florentine, and I'm here with Jeff Coates from Harmonia, and they represent Fyne Audio in the U.S. What's up, man? How are you?
Hey, Lenny, good to have you. Or good to have you. I'm saying that's like it's my show.
It is
Thanks
good for me to be with you.
Yeah, good to be with you.
Thanks for having me in your house.
Right.
With those fine speakers behind you.
Yes, exactly. People ask a lot. They're like, is that a real background? And yes, it's been hauled around over the better part of 30 years and slowly grown. So it's all real.
Wow. Well, we'll have to get into what's in that system behind you in a little bit.
Yeah.
But before we do, let's get to know you. So what is your history? How did you get into hi-fi? How did you get into distribution? What's your background?
I think like a lot of us that are in this business, it happened by accident. I was looking for a part-time job when I was in college, and I rode my bike to this little mom and pop white good, brown goods store down the road that sold TVs and appliances, and they had a tiny little audio department. I'd always been into the gear since I was a kid, so I had an opportunity to sign on with them, and I was that annoying guy running around with the spec sheets, talking to managers going, hey, what's this compared to that? And why is this one better? And why do I care
But you're
about
that spec sheet guy, huh?
Well, I got broken to that early, and thank goodness, so there was one really, really cool guy, this dude, Michael, and he was just like, man, kind of the aged out hippie type. And he's like, you just got to chill and listen to it. I was like, oh, okay. So that kind of broke me of the big, rack system with the 15-inch woofer and that kind of thing. And it started down that pursuit to finding stuff that maybe just on a straight spec standpoint didn't look like it would make as much bass or play the way I'd want it to, but in fact was way, way, way superior. And I've been kind of in it ever since. I honestly can't imagine doing anything else.
So how long have you been with Harmonia?
I just joined Harmonia just a few months ago. Joined these guys back in May. Yeah.
Okay.
Known Jesse Luna, the vice president over here, for a long time. And Dave Schultz, mostly our president, mostly by reputation for years. But yeah, I had an opportunity to join these guys. We actually met through a close personal friend who was just like, hey, I know what you're doing right now, and I know what you want to do. You should go talk to Jesse. Then Jesse got the same conversation. So he and I got together. And the idea was just kind of bringing some of that enthusiasm and professionalism back to this world of distribution. I remember real early on in my retail days when there was a couple of distributors, when they would come into our shop, it was like, holy smokes, guys, pay attention. We're about to learn something. We're going to have some fun. We're going to learn something that's going to make us better salespeople, and we're going to sell things that we never thought we could before. And that's what we want to do with Harmonia. So I'm psyched to be here.
Yeah, you have a lot of great brands, and the one we're talking about today, Fyne Audio. I mean, it looks really nice. Like I'm a looks guy, right? I am not a spec guy.
Mm-hmm.
So looks and sound, but I'm probably the unique case maybe of looks first, and then I hear it, and they look incredible, and there's all different lines. But before we kind of get into that, give me a little history, because I don't know a ton about Fyne Audio.
So Fyne is a total, it's really kind of hard to imagine a company like this exists. In 2017, Dr. Paul Mills and his key staff were fixing to get laid off by the company that they all had worked for many years, because it had been purchased by a large conglomerate. They were moving production to China, et cetera. So this once great UK loudspeaker manufacturer was basically leaving the UK. Dr. Mills was pretty bummed about this, but he had an opportunity to get some seed money and to start a fresh company, but managed to hold on to all of his intellectual property. So that was the crazy part. So not only did they have great engineering resources and great relationships and great manufacturing resources, but they also had the ability to start with this, what they call IsoFlare driver, and then be able to move forward with brand new technology. So they had kind of a clean, unbroken line back to 1937 with the first dual concentric driver. This engineering group's been working with this tech for a long, long time.
So did he own like all the patents and stuff?
He did. Yeah. And
wow,
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm not sure exactly how all that.
Yeah, we won't get into the fine tooth comb, but just the surface level of it.
I see what you did there. That's good.
So he brought all the technology over from this other company kind of and started fresh.
Yeah. Well, that was a great part. So without having to worry about, oh, well, we've always used an Alnico magnet for the woofers. It's like guitar guys, right? They get so tied up in tone. They're like, man, I can only play it if it's got this Alnico magnet Celestian driver. It's like, all right, well, maybe there's some new stuff that actually sounds better. So they started looking at new materials, totally changed the geometry of the way that the cone was built. We're able to move the tweeter further inside to the voice coil of the mid bass driver. And all of a sudden, you've got this brand new driver where everything is truly originating from a single point in space. So when any tone comes up off that IsoFlare driver, they just does something called isotropic imaging. Like it's literally coming from a single point in space, and it is evenly distributed out into the room. It's pretty special.
So were they like the first company to use the concentric driver?
No, I mean it's so Tannoy.
Like I mean, back like a long time ago.
Yeah, so Tannoy was the original, right? They were the original patenter and held that. And a lot of companies have some other variation of this. What's unique about this is how close they're able to get that tweeter back inside the throat of the bass driver. So it's actually inside the voice coil of the bass driver. Whereas a lot of times you'll see it's more of a coaxial type, where it's the driver's mounted out in front of the cone or just a little proud of the dust cap of the woofer. So more like what you'd see in like an in-ceiling speaker or in the old coax speakers that we put in our cars. And that can work really well. But what these guys found is by actually getting that driver exactly at the acoustic center of the mid bass, you can get much, much more consistent dispersion, less phase error, way more stable imaging, and just this huge kind of walk around the room soundstage. And it's, yeah, the proof's in the listening. It's awesome stuff.
So I was going to ask what somebody would expect if they never listened to a concentric driver, but I feel like you just almost answered that for me.
Right.
So
I love that about it. It's not, you don't look at it and go, oh, I know what that's going to sound like. You know, and we do that, right? You're a visual person, right? You see a loudspeaker, you're like, oh, I know what a beryllium dome sounds like. I know what that loudspeaker cone is going to sound like. I've heard, and these really don't do that. They use a lot of different materials depending on the price point and the size of the driver and the application. But the idea is just to kind of put the sound out there in the room and free it from the cabinet.
Yeah, and I see that they, have that same design. I mean, if I was, to look at that design kind of resonates the speaker behind you, to the, the old Tannoys and back in the day.
Yeah.
But now you have a couple different lines out right now that do everything from like home theater to the hi-fi speakers and vintage speakers. Can you kind of break those down for me a little bit?
This is what I love. I mean, there's really there's a type of loudspeaker for just about every application. So we just the beginning of the month, just launched the 500S series, which is really designed at that kind of performance oriented, but not spending not ridiculous audiophile price point. And there's a LCR, there's a great compact bookshelf, there's a slim tower, and there's a larger tower speaker. And they range in price from like $800 to $3,500 a pair. So pretty reasonable stuff. Like it's something that you could wrap your head around. If it's, if you're somebody that's newer to the hobby or just isn't going to spend 40 grand on a pair of speakers, it's nice to know you can get something that's really well engineered and sounds amazing at more real world prices.
And they had like the trickle down technology from the higher end drivers in the higher end speakers, right?
Heck yeah. So they've got IsoFlare, they've got bass tracks, which is the way that we get the bass energy out of the cabinet.
So what is that?
That's pretty cool. If you look at the base of this speaker, it's a little hard to see on this guy, but there's a little black strip at the bottom. So there's actually a secondary bandpass enclosure inside the woofer, inside the loudspeaker. And then that bandpass outputs down into a Tractrix horn that radiates bass energy out in all four directions away from the loudspeaker. So it makes it way easier to place than having a conventional port just sticking out the back or on the sides of the speaker where you're always worried about how it's loading. And it always is controlled. So we don't care if you have a deep, pile carpet or if you're putting it on concrete flooring or whatever. The way that bass tracks works is the Tractrix horn that the port fires into is mounted on a little base. So Makes it very easy to position these in a lot of different rooms.
So the tower speakers, like you were just talking about, they have the opening underneath or in the front as well, like that one. Okay.
Yeah, so it's underneath, but if you look at like the new 502S or the 501S, you'll see there's a little window that you can see all the way around the bottom part of the speaker that sits up a little bit from a platform, so that it just allows it to radiate that deep bass energy out into the room.
I think that's good when you can allow people to put the speakers wherever works for them. I think that's always very helpful because like nobody has like the perfect hi-fi room. I mean, for the most part,
right?
Like every space is going to be different.
On this podcast, yeah.
No, I don't know that I don't know that anybody's had like everybody's like my room's not perfect. It has windows here, it has doors here, or this and that, and it's rare that you see somebody that has like that acoustically treated perfectly set room. I mean, it doesn't always work that way. So it's always nice when there's speakers that you can move around and kind of put as needed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the perfect room is the one that you want to listen to music in, right? It's like if you've got a space, that's perfect, man. That's more than most people have. So we want to make sure you can get it in that space, get the best sound we possibly can from that loudspeaker. And then depending on kind of what you're looking for inside the Fyne line, they have that very sort of that modern slim tower look, and then a decidedly not so modern look with the vintage series, which
so does it go from the 5 series that you were just talking? Was it the 500 series?
That's right, 500S, but sure.
The 500S. What's the next step up from that one?
So there's a 500 SP, which is special production. So that's a little upgrade in terms of driver technology, better crossover parts, beautiful, beautiful gloss cabinets that are made in Europe. Then 700, which is still even a little step up driver technology wise. And it's you start getting into that really beautiful kind of lute shaped or boat shaped cabinet, so bent birch ply cabinets, more sophisticated materials. And then oddly, and this is one of the cooler things, I think, you can get those same types of drivers as in the 700 or 700 SP in these kind of throwback enclosures.
Yeah, so let's talk about the vintage series because this is interesting. I'm kind of a vintage guy, so I enjoy this, and I like seeing like that's if I was to pick a speaker in my house, if I had room for certain speakers, they'd be the vintage style. I mean, that's just kind of how I am. So what makes those unique?
So right away, it's utilizing the absolute best driver technology that Fyne has and putting it in a closure that you would not expect to sound the way that it does. We used a pair of the vintage 15s at AXPONA last year, actually, down in the downstairs lobby system. And people just kept walking up to him going, how's that? That's not what that speaker sounds like. I heard my grandpa had a pair of those, and that's not what they sound like. They're kind of warm and rolled off, and these are not. Like there's attack, there's a lot of speed. They throw a huge stage. That's what I think is really unique about it is you get this really cool throwback look and feel with absolute modern performance because this is the best driver technology that Fyne has. And there's 3 versions of this vintage. So there's one that's roughly equivalent to like the 700 series. There's one that's roughly equivalent to the 700 SP. And then the flagship vintage, that's very close to what Fyne offers in their F1 or their very best loudspeakers.
I like how that like some of them. I'm looking at the vintage series. I guess the maybe the entry light. It almost looks like a antique radio.
Yeah,
like how it has. I don't know if it's a dial at the bottom or if it's just kind of designed like that. But that's a pretty cool design. How is that meant to look that way?
It's pretty cool. So the one that's actually a high frequency, there's a high frequency adjustment, gives you plus or minus 3 dB just on the overall tweeter output.
It's nice that that's on the front too, by the way.
No, right? Because otherwise it's like, oh, well, let me see what this sounds like. It makes it harder. And then the other is a presence control. So it gives you a limited band through the mid bass or right in the kind of the vocal range of the mid range. And it effectively it kind of moves the stereo image a little further in or out depending on the setting. So it's like
a dynamic expander built in?
I wouldn't say dynamic. It's really just it's all passive components. There's no active equalization there. So it's just a
Okay.
passive EQ in the crossover that can either boost or cut between roughly, I want to say between like 3 and 5K.
I like that you guys work and have that on the mid range, because I don't know anybody else that really does that. Everybody gets either, the treble, plus or minus, and sometimes the bass, but I don't know that I've seen it on the mid range. And I tend to be more the mid range guy.
So what I find especially, I like this totally, we're going to take this off road for a second. I've been watching Peacemaker the last couple of nights, crazy show. It's amazing. But I love the soundtrack because I came up good, bad, ugly, indifferent 80s, 90s rock stuff that has not survived particularly well. It's not stuff you look back and go, wow, that was amazing. Everybody loves that, that Second Winger record or whatever. I mean, it's not great, but you put some of that stuff on, you need a little less mid-range. So, there's going to be all kinds of recordings that people enjoy from various types of music that maybe you just want a little bit of, you want to pull back that mid-range energy a little bit. And that's what's I find really useful with that presence control.
Well, that's interesting that you bring up the soundtracks for the Peacemaker. I've never heard of the show. It looks interesting. I'm looking. It's like a like a superhero action show?
It's bananas. Yeah.
It looks it looks wild, but I like the idea of it having an interesting soundtrack. So do you have any other shows that you've watched over the years that have just killer soundtracks that you would recommend to somebody? I have two.
Treme.
Treme.
HBO series Treme. That was for me a primer in New Orleans jazz and bounce and hip hop, and it was just so tremendous. Heartbreaking story, but really, really excellent. Boy, that's the first one that jumps out. And then, I've actually got one sitting on the record rack right there. A bunch of covers. Vince Vaughn had a show that's just on now called Bad Monkey. It's based on a Carl Hiaasen book, Sit Down in the Florida Keys. But this is cool because there's a bunch of modern artists doing Tom Petty covers. And they kind of quietly happen during the show. You're not even really aware of it. You're like, oh man, this is a Tom Petty song, but that's not Tom Petty. So that's pretty cool.
Then they came out with an album?
Yeah.
That's pretty sick.
Yeah. So I love that stuff. It's like, there's all kinds of ways to get turned on to music. We were talking a little bit before we got started, just rate local radio, and, there's great podcasts out there, and, and sometimes just TV, you're listening to something, you're like, wow, what is this? And it takes you into a new and unexpected way.
Oh, it definitely does. I mean, like, I used to watch The Blacklist, probably the first 9 or 10 seasons. It got off track, but they had a wonderful soundtrack. And they even had some hi-fi in the show, but the music was really, really good throughout that show. Just every episode, you could tell whoever produced that show was into it. It was done really well. And then the other one would be probably the more popular one, but Stranger Things. Stranger Things has an amazing soundtrack. They've come out with several albums from the series, but just watching movies and series and stuff like that have really good soundtracks, and more so series maybe than movies. It's a great way to get turned on the new music.
Well, I think it's so important. This we focus a lot on hi-fi, especially at a show like AXPONA. Sometimes it's all 2-channel presentation, right? But the way that we listen at home, a lot of it is going to be audio return channel 2+1. Maybe it's 2 speakers and a sub. Maybe it's just 2 speakers that are doing double duty for music and theater. So something that you can really don't listen through a little sound bar or your TV speakers. Like we're saying, there's a lot of great music on a lot of these shows. You want to pipe that through the main system and be able to enjoy that. I find it's also a really great gateway for hi-fi for the other people in the family that maybe aren't as into it. You want to expose your kids to it. You start playing some YouTube music videos, and it's like, holy smokes, this sounds amazing. It's like, yeah.
Are your kids into it at all, or do they just kind of brush it off?
A little bit. I mean, they're working out their own taste in music, which I love. My 11-year-old especially is, he's figuring it out, we're going through a little bit of a Benson Boone phase right now, which is okay. That's interesting. We'll take it. But yeah, no, it's fun, and they definitely appreciate being able to play it on something that sounds better than the little soundbar that we have in the living room.
Now, does he have his own turntable yet? Okay, that's something I did for my son years ago, and he still has his system in his room, and he has his albums, and he'll buy albums here and there. But yeah, that kind of really does get him into it for sure. Like, and it's cool that he has an artist that he's into. That's fun.
Well, it's kind of, it expands out from there. I mean, you find something that you like, and you don't necessarily know why, and then before you know it, it takes you down that path, right? It's like, and I love when you're able to do it kind of free of kind of previous association or dogma. It's like, no, I like that song. It's like, well, that band is a little strange. It's like, I don't care, I like it. It's like, right on, dude. Like,
yeah, there's a cover of one of the Benson Boone songs, the beautiful, what is Beautiful Things, I think.
Yeah.
I'm blanking right now on it, but there's a cover band that I listen to that's like it's a harder rock cover band called Our Last Night. And if you want to like blow his mind, just look up the Our Last Night version, and they do covers of all the current popular songs and going back to the 2000s. Like if somebody wants to hear like a Britney Spears cover in like screamo rock or something, they do a good job. But they've done a lot of newer songs really well, to the point where I've listened to them with other people, and like there's a Billie Eilish song, and they're like, I actually like their version better. Yeah. And it's kind of crazy.
Well, it's cool. Like when a good song can handle can hold up to a totally different interpretation, and the song still stands up.
That is definitely a thing. I'm for sure a cover guy. But now I want to learn about what's in your system, so what model of the Fyne speakers do you have behind you?
So this is the Fyne Classic Gold 10 SP. Vintage Classic Gold 10 SP. A lot of words in that. So they're inside the line. They've got vintage Classic Gold, and then vintage Classic. So this is the kind of the mid tier. This is the 10-inch IsoFlare driver, completely manufactured in Scotland. Beautiful Baltic birch cabinet with a nice walnut veneer.
I like how that one still has. I'm looking at it now. The energy and presence.
Yeah,
that's a fun way of putting treble and mid range. I really do. That's really cool.
Yeah.
And what else is in your system? Because there's a lot of stuff going on back there. Like all in front of a rather large album collection. If you ask me.
I got a lot of records, which blessing and a curse, right? But so I wanted to have. So right now, what I'm listening to is the Pathos, the Logos 2 integrated amplifier, which is beautiful product from Pathos in Vicenza, Italy. That's really cool, vacuum tube front end, and then 150 watt solid state MOSFET power amplifier stage. Drives the heck out of these. It's a really, really nice combination. And then sort of my baseline, just that I've had for years, and kind of as new products come in, I've got a bunch of the Rotel Michi product, pair of their big M8 monos that if I ever just need to really get a speaker walking, a 1,000 watt pair of Class AB mono blocks will be more power than I'll ever need for any sensible use. That doesn't get played quite as much, but that's fun when I've got a big set of speakers and I need to really hear what they can do. But I've got their new Michi Q5, which is a really great sounding CD player DAC combo that I'm using to spin, because not even here, I still got my old collection of compact discs. And
do you have a large CD collection as well?
Yeah, those have mostly gotten put down into the big binders.
Oh, I love the big binders. Mm-hmm. That's a thing, right?
I mean,
do you know that you can actually you can go on eBay, right? And you can look up just people that buy these binders at estate sales and whatnot like that. And you can just buy a binder of a single genre of CDs, and it's totally random.
Oh, wow.
And when you get it, it's almost like you're going back in time, because you open it up, you don't know what's going to be inside, and you're like, oh, I had this, whatever. And you're just going through, and it's like, 100, 200 CDs. And that's a great way to like try new music on CDs and like bring yourself also back to where you came from with those big binders that we all used to carry around in the car.
Yeah.
Do you ever like you're sitting driving, like,
Absolutely.
people now, they're on their phones, which is awful. But back
Hold on,
25,
I gotta get the right CD here. Yeah,
yeah,
that was almost
25,
as
30
bad.
years ago, you had the visor down, you had your map out, your map print out from the computer, or you had the big binder over your steering wheel, or reaching around, even for those that had the 6 discs that weren't in the trunk and were actually just like in the back seat or something like that. It was a mess.
Yeah, true.
So are you listening to anything specific in the car right now? Like, do you listen to different stuff in the car than you do in your house?
I'm a big, here in Austin, we have a great radio station. I love KOTX, just a little shout out to them. They do a great job, play all kinds of music that I wouldn't have heard normally. They're kind of I don't want to say format free, but format eclectic. So it's a great way to get exposed to a lot of stuff. So that's on constantly. If I'm on a longer drive, big outlaw country, Sirius XM, constantly. Or if KTX pisses me off and I'm not enjoying what they're playing, I go right over to Sirius.
I'm gonna make you. You're gonna have to go over to Bob Fonseca's station, and listen to some classic rock.
Yeah.
Although when he's on, they actually don't play that much. It's more of the morning talk show. But
yeah, that's good. I mean, hey, KLBJ's an absolute classic, man. I mean, there's a couple of we got a couple of great stations here. We're very lucky. I keep actually a tuner. I'm one of the few people I know that still. I have a couple of tuners in the house, and I always have an FM tuner in a system, just because local radio is tremendous here. We probably have,
now, is it an analog or a digital tuner?
This one particular one's digital, but I've got a big old 7-gang Kenwood LO2T that they'll trot out depending on,
Okay.
So I've got the big flex analog tuners too. They can be temperamental sometimes, especially because they're all coming up on 35 years old.
Yeah, a little bit. They can be. I'm actually surprised by how many people still use Sirius XM, because, maybe it's more if you're traveling a lot, because I'm guessing you travel a lot and you may drive a lot as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I noticed a lot of people that I talk to listen to a lot of Sirius XM, and I haven't done that in a long time, so it's very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, everything here, it's Texas close, right? It's like 200 miles. You're like, yeah, whatever. All right, cool. We'll see you in a few hours. And then you come back the same day. It's like you're doing those. It's just nice to have kind of that regular companion. And I just never got in the habit of doing the playlist while I was driving, or a Spotify radio or a Qobuz radio or what have you.
That makes a lot of sense, though, because especially Austin, I have never heard Texas Close, but that is the epitome of Texas Close, because you got DFW in the north, you got, San Antonio south, you got Houston to the east, and, the west is wild from there on out. But
well, that's it. I mean, El Paso's its own thing. It's like that's a whole day. But anything else, you're going back and forth in a day, pretty regular.
Wow. Okay. So, for somebody that has never heard Fyne audio speakers, okay, we're going to jump back into
as we should
to the speak.
That's why we're here, right? So,
we like to throw it around all over the place. So, what would somebody expect when they're listening? Let's start with the classic line. So, somebody who's never heard the classics, what are you telling them about them?
Sure. This has been fun because I've done this with a few dealers and a lot of consumer presentations with this. The first is just to kind of shut your eyes. Don't think about the way the loudspeaker appears. It's not, because immediately you're going to expect it to be kind of a closed in, more sort of rolled off high end. It'll maybe a little extra warmth in the bass, and that's going to be your preconceived notion based on looking at the vintage. It doesn't do that. You're going to have an amazing attack, great deep bass extension. This 10-inch, it's flat to 35 hertz in this room. I mean, it's tremendous amount of deep bass for most kind of music that I listen to. But just this really expansive, very wide soundstage. And you really can, on a huge listening area. So one of the benefits of not having of having a very consistent off-axis response is you increase the size of that sweet spot. So heaven forbid you could actually sit 2 or 3 people and they're all enjoying a stereo image. So it's, they're a very domestically friendly, really good sounding, very approachable speaker.
The 500 series, the 500S, which is the newer one.
They're crazy.
Because the price point of those is very, very good. Like for somebody that's just getting into hi-fi, or even somebody that's just starting to upgrade on their journey, like that's a great price point. You can get pairs of speakers under $3,500. Like it's pretty crazy, especially with technology that's on, coming from the higher end speakers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what I find for a lot of the for people who love music, I don't want to say our opportunity is getting them to move from a single powered speaker that they might have in their living room and talks to their soundbar, talks to the speaker that's in their kitchen, is getting them to move from something like that into component hi-fi. So right away, the thing that a lot of speakers do with their smallest offerings is they go, well, the mid-range and the highs are just gorgeous. It's like, yeah, I'm sorry, but if I go to a coffee shop and I see a little tiny powered speaker tucked up in a corner, it's making bass. You have to have some dynamics. You have to have some richness. And that's something I really appreciate in that 500 series. I've had some time with the 501 and the 502S, the small tower systems, and they're tremendous. They're big dynamic sound. They make a tremendous amount of deep bass. They throw a big image, but it's the sort of presentation that makes somebody wants to sit up and go, okay, yeah, that is way better than my little Brand X powered speaker or the soundbar that was up under my TV. This is worth the space. Because I think we forget about that domestically, that's kind of what we're up against, right? We're not back in the day when you got a big old projector TV where you can just park a speaker next to it on the side and nobody's even going to notice. You got a flat panel up on the wall.
Space and the wife factor and all that stuff, like that is 90% of the conversations I have that comes up. One of those two things comes up every time.
Yeah.
So
you gotta have a good looking system. These guys do a great job. Fyne has beautiful finishes all the way down. So there's, you can get a gloss black and a few, and I've got a pair of gloss black 701s back there. But they do a really nice walnut veneer. They do a really nice black painted walnut veneer, which actually is really nice if you don't want that shiny gloss. And that's all the way down to 500S series. So you can get a really good looking, great sounding speaker for not a tremendous amount of money.
So what about the design on the edges of the drivers, on the surround portion of the driver? What is going on there? Because it almost looks like I can't tell just looking at the pictures, but it's like etched, or there's all these lines kind of at a curve.
Yeah.
What's going on there?
It's a really, really neat idea. So no matter what you do, there's always going to be a certain amount of energy that's stored inside the cone. So the cone has a resonant frequency based on the materials it's made out of, the tones that are playing through it. And sometimes those standing waves at those resonance frequencies can get basically caught in the cone and increase distortion. So that's something that they do called fine flute. And it's different on every driver, depending on the cone material used and the size of the bass driver, for instance. But the idea is that it breaks up any of those standing waves that are captured in the cone. So you end up having less of that energy that finds its way sonically as distortion. And you've got a different version of that through every one of those IsoFlare drivers.
Oh, really? So every time you go up, or actually it would be a trickle down, and that's in all the series. That's in the vintage as well.
Instead of just using, because previously they would have used an old, like a double roll, either a cloth surround or a foam surround, or in some cases a rubber surround type material. But in this case, it's usually a rubber surround, but has those actually molded into it. And the purpose is, to break up standing waves in the cone.
So if this IsoFlare driver, right, was a mythical creature or a legendary hero, who would it be?
That's a good one. A mythical creature or legendary hero. Well, I just watched Clash of the Titans again.
So, that is one of my favorites. As well, the original or the remake?
Well, the Ray Harryhausen animated original is by far tops.
As a kid, that was my favorite movie.
That was so good. I actually have his. Well, we can talk about that later. I have his birthday marked on my calendar, so every year it comes up, and I'm just like, you know what? Time to watch Ray Harryhausen. Got to do it.
Nice.
7 Voyages of Sinbad. Got to get in there. But yeah, Perseus. I think that's somebody that can come into a wide range of different challenges, fight a wide range of foes, and come out on top.
Okay, I like it. And if you were to play one song for someone on your speakers there, the Fyne vintage SPs, what, and it could not be your standard Audiophiles show song, what would it be? So, like, you can't play Steely Dan.
Bill Withers, Use Me.
Okay.
And I know there's a Patricia Barber version of that, but I love that song far before I heard that one. Hold on. Michelle Indeggio-Cello. Who is he and what is he to you? That's a crazy good song. It's got this really, really, she's a great bass player. She was in John Mellencamp's bands for years. Amazing bass line. Got a really cool walk to it. And it's just kind of, so let's go there. Michelle Indeggio-Cello. Who is he and what is he to you? Okay.
And if you had a time machine and could go back to any point in Fyne's history, what would it be?
I mean, it's not that long, right? I mean, they've been around since 2017.
This is true. I feel like I kind of even meant that going back into the previous life. But is there any certain like event that happened, since the creation of it? It's only been 8 years, but is there anything that was like, wow, that was... Wish I was there for that, because you're new to the company, so this is kind of a thing, right? You haven't been there for 8 years.
No, I would have loved to have been in the room when Dr. Mills realized that he was going to be able to continue doing what he loved under a new brand name, despite just having his previous company, the company he'd worked for and spent his life with, kind of moving in a different direction without it.
No, I get it. When you spend your life doing something somewhere and then it's, it's out and you get the chance to redo it. That's an amazing.
Because from what I've not met the gentleman yet, but from my friends and colleagues that have, they just said, it was, he was surprised. He was kind of like, well, I guess this is it. We're shutting up shop. I'm going to retire, and that's just it. He didn't want to. So I can only imagine what that was like, that moment when you realize it's like, hey, actually, why don't you go do your thing?
That's
Keep the factory
awesome.
Open a new facility. Keep designing.
That's amazing. Amazing stuff. Jeff, thanks for joining me today on the AXPONA Audio Insider podcast. It was great to learn about Fyne Audio, and I'll be seeing you soon in a couple months. We'll be doing this again.
Yeah, man.
For one of your other brands. That'll be exciting to catch up and everything. So, cool. But I appreciate learning all about it. I love the vintage aspect of the speakers and the history. And I really enjoyed that last point that you made of how, he was able to carry his legacy over to another company. That was really fun. And, some crazy stuff. So I really appreciate you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Lenny. Appreciate it.
All right. For the AXPONA Audio Insider podcast, I'm Lenny Florentine, Jeff Coates from Harmonia. We will see you guys next time.